Okay, the next thing that we're going to talk about through the course of our drafting unit is something called lettering. Now, before you start wondering, well, what the heck are we working on handwriting for? The act of handwriting and lettering is a little bit different. Handwriting, which, as most of you already know, everybody has a unique handwriting style, okay? And which most of the time, your handwriting style can be usually only interpreted or read by usually yourself, unless you're truly trying to make an effort to make it neat. But for most of us, when we're writing stuff such as when we're taking notes, we're only making sure that they are going to be able to be seen and understood by ourselves because we're the only one that has to look at them. In drafting, we have to make sure that we go through the steps and we actually take the time to perfect our lettering technique. If you look at the top of this paper, this right here, and I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. Okay, if you look closely, you can see that it gives you examples how to construct each letter. So for the example, so for A, it actually is a three-step process. And it actually, if you look really close, and if you look really close, you can see that that arrow is pointing down. This is down, and then you go across. So it would look something like this. And I'm going to draw that on a piece of notebook paper that I'm going to set right here so you can see it. All right. So if my first step is I'm going down, I start at the top. 1, 2, and then my last step is right there. It's 3. Now, these types of letters, they are known as block letters, okay? So you're going to write them in that format, all right? Now, each letter and number that is listed on here, all right, it gives you a method for to construct the letters. Now, there are some numbers and letters that I use. There are some letters and numbers that I do a little bit different. I'm going to kind of go through how to do these, but we're going to kind of talk through a couple other things on concerning with lettering. Now I'm going to pan back out. Okay, so if you look here at the bottom, we have a bunch of different letters and numbers represented. Then there are these two lines. Those are known as guidelines, or another way to describe them is from our earlier work, our construction lines. And you notice they're very thin, but they are basically going to set or determine the size of our letters. So that just means the top of our letter should touch the top line, the bottom letter of the letter should touch the bottom line. So some examples. So like let's say I'm going to do the letter N. Well, if I look up here at N, and it's actually a three-step process. 1, 2, and then you connect them. So down here, I'm going to go, and let's see, I can see that. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. And I would make sure, and I know it's kind of difficult to tell, but as you're doing this over a period of time, you are going to have to do one of two things. One, you want to maintain your point on your pencil, which means as I take a step or a stroke, I quarter turn my pencil so that way it keeps the tip pointed. Or I need to make sure that I sharpen it frequently. That way that once I have a sharpened pencil, my lettering, my drawing, anything that I do in drafting, it's going to be that much more accurate. Now, I have to make sure that down here at the bottom, for each one of the letters, that I make sure that I space them out enough and I make them of the same size so that I can fit 3 of these numbers and letters there. Now, my suggestion is that when you start working on this, that you're going to actually work on this assignment, is you might want to have a piece of notebook paper with you That way you can practice before you put your final letters on there. Okay? I'm going to go through and do a couple more, and just kind of basically all I'm doing is I'm using the examples up here as far as the stroke patterns that I need to take. I'm going to follow those, and I'm going to try to recreate them down here in the spaces provided for these letters here and on the back. You're going to want to try to do those letters and numbers 3 times. The fractions and the whole numbers, so the mixed fractions, you're going to do those twice. And then, of course, the sentence down here at the bottom, you have 3 places to put that in, but you got to notice that it's going to get smaller as it gets going, and you may have to take your ruler and go back over and make sure to make your construction lines or your guidelines better. I'm going to go through and do a couple more letters and numbers as practice, but just make sure that you're following along. And of course, as you're going through and working on this, if you have questions and want me to go over a certain letter or number, all you have to do is ask. Okay? Now, a couple that I'm going to go over that sometimes cause folks a little bit of trouble. Okay? One of those would be number 9 and 6. They're actually the same stroke pattern, but in reverse, and I'll explain that. Now, I do them a little bit different than how they are listed above. First of all, with a 6, I start at the top, right about there, where I made that little dot. So you can't see that real well, but we'll try. And so it's right there. So I'm going to touch, bring it around. And as I said, some of this you're going to have to do a little bit of practice. Like that, one fell swoop. Make sure it touches the top, touches the bottom, comes back around. Now, so the 6, I start on the top or the outside, and I work my way in. 9s, I start in the middle, touch up there, bring it down just like that. And just like that, as long as you get them kind of close. If you're not really happy with them, of course, erase it and try to redraw it. Number 4. If I look up here at the top at number 4, it's So 1, 2, and 3. So down here at the bottom, when I'm doing number 4, so it's step 1. Step 2, go about halfway, and step 3. This is not appropriate. That is handwriting. That is not lettering. Okay? I have a couple pencils here, just in case I lose a point. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, and that's how you would do 4s, 6s, and 9s. Now there's a couple other that I'm going to show you. If you look at okay, so now once again, sorry the video kind of cut off a little bit, but we'll be all right. All right, so now the next letter that I'm going to go over is our R's, which R and B and letter P are going to be kind of the same. Okay, so I'd start off, that's step 1. Step 2, so that's how you would do a P. And then step 3. So to show you that again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now for the letter B, the only difference is that third step. So you're going to start 1, 2, 3. And I made that one where the loops were not the same size. You want to make sure your loops or hoops or whatever you want to call it are the same. 1, 2. And a way to make sure that you're going to hit the middle every single time after you make your first dot, your first line there. Make a little dot. 1, 2. That way you make sure that you hit the right mark every single time. All right. So you notice I'm trying to keep them as close to make sure that I make my letters all the same size, that I space them out the same, and you shouldn't have any issues. Now I'm going to go over a couple more. All right. Another one that students seem to have trouble with is number 8. If I look at the top, it's actually a 4-step process. Step 1 is right here. Step 2. Step 3. Step 4. Make sure that we are doing this in block format. So figure 8 is not correct. That's for handwriting. This is not handwriting. This is lettering. So you need to make sure that that's pretty clear. And just like that, and I'd make my 3/8. And there we go. And a couple more that we're going to do. The last ones I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you number 2, an S, and I've already showed you an A. I think I'll show you a C. So if we did the number 2, you're just going to start right here. 1, 2. 1, 2. That second one was actually better. All right. So actually, if I went back and looked at that right now, I'd get rid of that hanging 2 and I'd redraw it. Because you want to make sure the top touches the top line, the bottom touches the bottom. Like that. That's a little bit better. All right. And then we have our S. S, how I do S is a little bit different. You start right here in the middle. 1, 2, and 3. That. Just like that. All right, and you should notice that I start right in the middle there, I bring it around, and then I start here and I finish up my S. All right, the last one I'm going to do, I'm going to show you a W. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And okay, now basically your instructions are at this point for each letter or number, you're going to copy them down 3 times. So make sure you fall between the guidelines. Bottom of the number touches the bottom of the line, top touches the top. Up here for your mixed numbers, you're going to do those twice. These up here are merely for your reference to help you work on that. And then on the back of this assignment, same deal. Up here, letters and numbers, going to do those 3 times. Your mixed numbers, you're going to do twice. And then you'll work on the sentence there. And what the significance of that sentence is that it uses all the letters of the alphabet. Now, the thing I want you to understand is